You're in on it, aren't you, girl? Victor Hale's voice sliced through the diner's chaos, his badge glinting under the fluorescent lights like a blade. The air was thick with the acrid stink of fear, plates shattered on the floor, and the wail of sirens creeping closer. Emma Thompson, a 35-year-old black waitress, stood frozen, her hands still raised from calming the trembling patrons during the robbery. Her heart pounded, but her jaw clenched tight, teeth grinding against the accusation. The robbers had fled, but Victor, the Boston police chief, loomed over her, his sneer dripping with contempt. Nobody stays that calm unless they're part of the plan. Emma's eyes flicked to the corner booth where Alexander Grant, a billionaire in a charcoal suit, watched with a predator's intensity. His silence felt heavier than Victor's words. I wasn't, Emma started, but Victor cut her off, his voice a whip. Save it. I've seen your kind pull this before. The diner's patrons, still reeling from the gunman's threats, stared. Some whispered, their gazes shifting from pity to suspicion. Emma's uniform, frayed but clean, felt like a target on her back. She'd spent years swallowing insults, serving coffee to bigots, all to keep her asthmatic daughter, Lily, breathing. Now her composure, her strength, was being weaponized against her. Victor barked orders to his officers, his meaty hand gesturing toward Emma. Cuff her! She's coming downtown. The cold steel bit into her wrists as an officer yanked her arms back. Her pulse raced, but her face remained a mask of defiance, her lips pressed into a thin line. Alexander stood, his polished shoes clicking on the linoleum, and nodded to Victor. If you're sure, Chief, he said, his tone flat, betraying no doubt. His agreement was a gut punch. Emma's chest tightened, not from tears, but from a fury she buried deep. She de-escalated the robbery, kept the gunman from shooting, and saved lives. And this was her reward, handcuffs and betrayal. The diner's owner, Sal, stammered, She didn't do anything. But Victor's glare silenced him. You want to join her? He snapped. Emma's mind churned. Lily was at home, waiting for her next inhaler dose. The rent was due, and now this. The injustice burned like acid in her throat. As the officers dragged her toward the door, the crowd parted, their silence deafening. Victor leaned in, his breath hot with coffee and smugness. You thought you could play hero? Wrong move. Emma's gaze locked onto his, unflinching. She didn't beg. She didn't break. Outside, the Boston night swallowed her as she was shoved into a squad car. Alexander watched from the doorway, his face unreadable, but his fingers tightened around a small object in his pocket. A strange pendant dropped by the gunman, unnoticed by all but him. The crowd's whispers grew louder, a domino effect of gossip that would spread faster than the truth. Emma's life, already a tightrope, was unraveling with each second. Victor's accusation wasn't just a mistake, it was a calculated strike, rooted in the kind of prejudice Emma had fought her whole life. Her fists clenched in the cuffs, nails digging into her palms. She wouldn't let this define her. Not yet. The squad car's door slammed shut, a final nail in the coffin of her dignity. Victor's smirk lingered in her mind, a promise of more to come. Alexander turned away, his polished exterior hiding a flicker of unease. The pendant in his pocket felt heavier, a secret that could undo everything. Emma's world was collapsing, but something bigger was brewing, something that would drag them all into the light. You'll regret this, Emma Thompson hissed, her voice low and sharp, cutting through the squad car's stale air. Her wrists burned against the cuffs, but her eyes blazed with a fire that refused to flicker out. Victor Hale's smirk lingered in her mind, a venomous taunt, but she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. The Boston streets blurred past, neon lights smearing into streaks of red and blue from the cruiser's siren. Emma's heart hammered, not from fear, but from a molten rage she kept chained. She'd faced down a gunman, kept a diner full of strangers alive, and now she was the one in chains, branded a criminal for her courage. Inside the precinct, the fluorescent buzz was a dull ache in her skull. Officers shoved her toward a holding cell, their grips rough, their glances heavy with judgment. Keep moving, one barked, but Emma's steps were steady, her spine rigid. She didn't plead or protest. She let the silence carry her weight. Her mind raced to Lily, her 10-year-old daughter, alone at home with her inhaler and a neighbor's half-hearted promise to check in. The thought of losing custody, of Lily's fragile lungs struggling without her, was a knife twisting in her gut. Yet Emma's face remained a fortress, lips tight, jaw set, her dignity unyielding. As the cell door clanged shut, she sat on the cold bench, her hands still cuffed, nails biting into her palms. The other inmates, a mix of drunks and petty thieves, eyed her warily, sensing the quiet storm within her. "What did you do?" one muttered. Emma didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back, her gaze fixed on the ceiling, replaying Victor's accusation. "You're kind." The words were a brand, seared into her from years of serving coffee to sneering customers, enduring slurs whispered behind fake smiles. She'd fought for Lily's life, dropped out of nursing school and scraped by on tips, all to be reduced to a stereotype in a single night. But Emma wasn't broken. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was defiance, a vow carved in steel. She whispered to herself, "Truth finds its way." Her voice barely audible, yet heavy with prophecy. It wasn't just a promise to herself. It was a warning to Victor, to Alexander, to anyone who thought they could bury her. She'd survived worse. Evictions, hospital bills, nights praying over Lily's labored breaths. This was just another fight, and Emma fought dirty when it came to survival. The cell's chills seeped into her bones, but her resolve burned hotter. She thought of the diner, of Sal's futile protest, of Alexander's cold nod. His betrayal stung deepest, not because she expected better, but because his silence had weight, like a judge's gavel. She didn't know why he'd sided with Victor, but she'd seen his eyes flicker, a crack in his polished mask. That crack was her leverage, her way back. She'd find it, exploit it, and make them choke on their lies. As the hours dragged on, a guard's radio crackled outside, spitting fragments of a news report about the robbery. Emma's name wasn't mentioned, but the story was already twisting, painting her as a suspect. The dominoes were falling, her job gone, her reputation shredded, Lily's future at risk. Yet in that moment, Emma's fists unclenched, her breath steadying. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a survivor, forged in the crucible of a life that never played fair. The cell door loomed, but beyond it, a bigger battle waited. One she'd fight with the same grit that kept her standing when a gun was pointed at her face. "You made a mistake, Grant," Alexander muttered to himself, his fingers tightening around the strange pendant in his pocket. The diner's chaos had faded, but the weight of his decision clung to him like damp rot. He stood outside the precinct, the Boston night biting at his tailored coat, his polished exterior cracking under the memory of Emma Thompson's unyielding gaze. Her words, "Truth finds its way," echoed in his skull, a blade sharper than Victor Hale's accusations. He'd nodded to the police chief's claims, let prejudice cloud his judgment, and now the pendant burned in his hand, a clue he couldn't ignore. Back in his penthouse, the city's skyline sprawled below like a chessboard he'd mastered long ago. Alexander Grant, 60 billionaire mogul, wasn't used to second-guessing. His empire was built on cold calculations, not gut feelings. Yet as he sat at his mahogany desk, the security footage from the diner played on his laptop, a grainy truth he'd pulled through private channels. Emma's movements were clear. While calming the patrons, her hand had slipped into her apron, tapping out a 911 call on a hidden phone. She hadn't just de-escalated, she'd summoned help, risking her life. Victor's narrative, that she was complicit, crumbled like ash. Alexander's jaw clenched, his knuckles whitening. He'd backed the wrong horse. The pendant, a cheap silver trinket with a carved raven, was the anomaly. He'd spotted it on the floor, dropped by the hooded gunman as he fled. It wasn't evidence he'd shared with Victor. Instinct told him to hold it close. Now, staring at it, he felt a gnawing unease. The symbol was familiar, tied to a memory he couldn't place, perhaps from his days funding police charities. Had Victor rushed the arrest to cover something? Alexander's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the thrill of a puzzle. He'd built skyscrapers by seeing what others missed, and now he saw his error in Emma's case. Her composure wasn't guilt. It was steel forged in hardship. He replayed the footage frame by frame. Emma's steady voice guiding an elderly woman to breathe, her eyes locking with the gunman's, unflinching. She wasn't a criminal. She was a tactician. His fingers drummed the desk, a rare nervous tick. He'd let Victor's bias, his own bias, blind him. The accusation of her kind had slipped past his defenses, a reflex from a world where wealth insulated him from scrutiny. Now the pendant was a splinter in his mind, hinting at a deeper rot. Was it gang-related? A marker of something Victor knew and buried? Alexander's gut churned. He'd been complicit in a rush to judgment, and Emma was paying the price. The dominoes were falling. The news was already spinning the robbery, painting Emma as a suspect. Her life, her daughter's life, was collateral damage in Victor's game. Alexander's regret wasn't soft. It was a jagged edge cutting into his pride. He'd wronged a woman who'd shown more grit in 10 minutes than most of his boardroom sharks showed in a lifetime. He stood pacing, the pendant now a talisman of his failure. He needed to find her, to fix this, but the raven carving nagged at him, whispering of a bigger truth. Victor's smug certainty, his quickness to pin the crime, felt too neat, too staged. Alexander slipped the pendant into a drawer, its weight a promise of answers he didn't yet have. He grabbed his coat, resolve hardening. Emma wasn't just a victim. She was a loose thread in a tapestry someone wanted kept tight. The precinct lights glowed in the distance, a beacon of his next move. He'd start there, dig into Victor's story, and pull until it unraveled. The truth was out there, and he'd find it, or it would find him. "I'm not your charity case, Grant." Emma Thompson's voice cracked like a whip, her eyes blazing as she faced Alexander Grant in the dim light of the community center. Her arms crossed tight, fingers digging into her skin, holding back a storm of fury and betrayal. Released from the precinct after a night in a cell, she stood her ground, the sting of Victor Hale's accusation, "Your kind," still burning her throat. Alexander, the billionaire who'd nodded to her arrest, now tracked her down to this crumbling Boston shelter, his polished shoes out of place among the scuffed linoleum and folding chairs. His face, usually a mask of control, twitched with something raw. Guilt, maybe, or shame. "You were wrong," he said, voice low, but Emma cut him off, her words sharp as glass. "Wrong? You let them cuff me. You let him call me a criminal." Her jaw clenched, teeth grinding, the memory of Lily waiting at home fueling her fire. Alexander stepped closer, his hands raised, not in surrender, but in urgency. "I saw the footage. You called 911. You saved lives." Emma's laugh was bitter, a blade slicing the air. "And you still stood there, silent, while they dragged me away." The center's volunteers paused, their glances heavy, but Emma didn't flinch. She'd spent years swallowing prejudice. But this was personal. Alexander's fingers twitched, itching for the pendant in his pocket, the raven-carved trinket he hadn't shown anyone. His regret wasn't soft. It was a jagged weight, pressing harder with every second of Emma's defiance. He'd built an empire on seeing value where others saw none, yet he'd missed her strength, blinded by Victor's lies and his own bias. "I'm here to fix it," he said, but Emma's glare didn't soften. "Fix it? My job's gone. My name's trashed. My daughter's inhalers don't pay for themselves." Her voice dropped, cold and precise. "You don't get to play savior now." The dominoes of his mistake were still falling. The news had twisted Emma's story, painting her as a suspect, while Victor's smug face flashed on every channel, praising his swift action. Alexander's gut churned. He'd been complicit, a bystander to injustice. He'd tracked Emma here through court records and a tip from the diner's owner, Sal, who'd cursed his name. The community center buzzed with activity, kids laughing, mothers whispering, but all Alexander saw was Emma's unyielding resolve. She wasn't broken. She was a force, and he'd underestimated her. "I need your help," he admitted, the words foreign on his tongue. Emma's brow arched, skeptical. "My help? You're the one with the money." He leaned in, voice dropping to a rasp. "I have a lead. Something Victor's hiding, but I need someone who sees through the lies." Emma's fingers tightened on her arms, her pulse racing. She didn't trust him, not after his betrayal, but his words struck a nerve. Victor's accusation had been too quick, too vicious, like a predator protecting its kill. He thrust forward the cleared record papers, his hand steady, but Emma snatched them, her fingers trembling with rage. "This doesn't erase the night in that cell," she snapped, her chest heaving. Alexander's jaw tightened, his regret a boiling undercurrent. "I was blind. Victor's lies. Your lies, too," she cut in, her words a hammer strike. "You saw me as her kind, just like him." The apartment air thickened, charged with unspoken accusations, but Alexander didn't retreat. He pulled out the raven pendant, dangling it like bait. "This fell from the gunman. It's a lead." Emma's breath hitched, her eyes locking on the trinket, recognition flashing, a mirror to one her late father wore. Her mind raced, connecting dots. Her father's unexplained death in a random mugging years ago. Victor's quick rise in the force afterwards. "Why show me?" she demanded, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Alexander leaned in, his breath ragged. "Because you see what I missed. Help me expose Victor." Emma's pulse thundered, trust warring with instinct. She'd built walls from betrayal, but his crack of vulnerability, his eyes pleading, not commanding, chipped at them. "Fine," she said, her tone steel, "but on my terms. Fund my nursing classes, clear every stain on my name, and we investigate together. No secrets." Alexander nodded, the agreement a spark igniting an alliance. As she took the pendant, her fingers brushed his, electric tension surging. She rummaged in a drawer, pulling an old letter from her father, yellowed and creased. This symbol, he mentioned it in his last note. "Watch the ravens. They guard the corrupt." The words hung heavy, a hook sinking deep. Victor wasn't just biased. He was entangled in a web reaching back years, perhaps silencing her father to cover bribes. Emma's resolve hardened, her fear morphing into purpose. Alexander's eyes widened, the puzzle pieces slamming together. "Your father knew something about Victor." Emma's conditions weren't just demands, they were weapons, turning her from victim to partner. She pocketed the letter, her gaze piercing his. "Break your word and I'll bury you both." Alexander's nod was solemn, his pride yielding to necessity. Lily peeked in, her small voice breaking the storm. "Mom?" Emma softened instantly, scooping her up, but her eyes stayed on Alexander, a warning and a pact. The pendant and letter bound them, a mysterious thread unraveling Victor's facade. As Alexander left, the door's click echoed like a starting gun, promising a deeper dive into shadows where truth waited to strike. "You think you can sniff around my precinct like a rat in the garbage?" Victor Hale's deputy, Sergeant Harlan Crowe, snarled, his badge catching the harsh precinct light as he slammed his fist on the desk. Alexander Grant stood rigid, his fingers curling into fists, the raven pendant hidden in his pocket a secret weapon. Emma Thompson flanked him, her eyes locked on Crowe's sneer, her jaw set tight, teeth grinding against the urge to lash back. They'd come for old case files on her father's death, but Crowe blocked them, his bulk a wall of hostility. "This is personal," Emma shot back, her voice a blade. "My father." "Your father was a troublemaker," Crowe interrupted, his laugh cruel, eyes raking over her with disdain. Alexander stepped forward, his voice low and cutting. "We have questions about the mugging. Open the files." Crowe's face twisted, rage flashing. "Questions? From a billionaire playing detective and his pet suspect?" Emma's chest tightened, her nails biting into her palms, but she didn't flinch. Crowe leaned in, breath hot with coffee and lies. "Victor warned me about you two, digging where you don't belong." His hand hovered near his holster, a threat unspoken. Emma's pulse raced, memories of her father's cryptic letter flooding back. The ravens, the corruption. Crowe's hostility wasn't random. It reeked of cover-up, his loyalty to Victor, a chain binding him to darker deeds. "You're hiding something," Alexander accused, his eyes narrowing. Crowe cut him off, voice booming. "Hiding? You're the one barging in, stirring up old dirt." He shoved a stack of papers across the desk, but they were redacted, black lines slashing through names and dates. Emma snatched one, her fingers trembling with fury. This proves nothing! Crowe's smirk deepened, his fingers drumming a rhythm of mockery. Proves you're wasting time. Victor's clean. Your daddy wasn't. The words struck like a punch, Emma's breath hitching, her resolve cracking for a split second before stealing again. She saw it then. The matching raven tattoo peeking from Crowe's sleeve, a mark of allegiance to whatever web Victor spun. Alexander's hand gripped her arm, steadying, but his own anger simmered. We'll find another way, he muttered, but Crowe laughed, blocking the door. Try it. See what happens. The threat hung heavy, his eyes promising violence. Emma's mind whirled. Crowe wasn't just a deputy, he was Victor's enforcer, tied to the bribes her father had hinted at. His thuggish glare revealed the larger scheme, a network of corrupt cops silencing whistleblowers, her father the first victim, the diner robbery a fresh knot in the chain. She met Crowe's stare, unflinching. We're not stopping. Crowe shoved past them, shoulder-checking Alexander, the impact jarring. Get out before I arrest you both. Again. Emma's blood boiled, her steps quick as they exited, but her determination burned brighter. Crowe's outburst wasn't defense, it was desperation, a slip revealing the rot beneath Victor's badge. Alexander pocketed the redacted page, his face grim. He's protecting more than files. Emma nodded, her grip on the letter tightening, the puzzle sharpening. Crowe's thuggery exposed the conspiracy's edges. Hush money, staged crimes, lives ruined to keep the powerful safe. As they stepped into the street, Crowe's shadow loomed from the window watching, a predator sensing prey. You're playing with fire, poking into Victor's old cases, a retired cop named Riley muttered, his whiskey breath hitting Emma Thompson like a slap as she leaned across the bar table. Her fingers gripped the edge, knuckles whitening, eyes drilling into his evasive gaze. Alexander Grant sat beside her, his posture rigid, the raven pendant now around his neck like a noose tightening. They'd tracked Riley down after Crowe's blockade, his name slipping from a redacted file's margin. Tell us about my father's mugging, Emma demanded, her voice a razor. Riley's hand shook on his glass. It was random. Closed case. Alexander slammed a photo of the raven tattoo on the table. Like this. Random? Riley's eyes darted, sweat beading on his brow. Victor handled it. Said it was gang trash. Emma cut in, her tone lethal. Handled it? Or buried it? She shoved her father's letter forward, the words, "Ravens guard the corrupt," underlined in red. Riley's face paled, his chair scraping back. You don't know what you're stirring. But Emma pressed, her breath quickening, nails scoring the wood. They'd spent hours combing public records, Alexander's resources unlocking sealed reports, bribes logged as donations, arrests vanished like smoke. Riley cracked under her stare. Your dad was on to Victor's payoffs from the docks. Gang money for protection. Alexander's fist clenched, his pulse hammering. Proof? Riley glanced around, voice dropping. Victor's ledger, hidden in his office safe. Emma's chest burned. Her father's death was no accident. A silencing hit ordered by the man who'd cuffed her. She stood, grabbing Riley's collar. Where's the safe code? He stammered. Raven's Eye, his tattoo number, 47. Alexander nodded, his eyes meeting Emma's, a silent vow flashing. They left Riley slumped, his warning ringing. Crowe's watching. He'll crush you. Outside, Emma's steps quickened, her mind a whirlwind of clues. The ledger tying Victor to her father's murder, the diner robbery an echo of staged crimes to scare witnesses. Alexander pulled strings, hacking into old police emails through a contact, uncovering threads. Victor's promotions spiked after cleanups. Crowe, his shadow enforcer. Emma's hands shook as she pieced it. Her composure in the robbery had threatened their script, making her a target. We need that ledger, she said, her voice steel. Alexander's jaw set. Tonight, his office. They infiltrated under the cover of night, Emma's nursing skills turning to lock-picking from online tutorials, her fingers steady despite the adrenaline surge. Alexander watched the door, his breath ragged. Inside, the safe loomed, the code clicking open. 47 unlocking a trove of ledgers. Emma rifled through, her eyes widening at names, dates, and payoffs matching her father's warnings. Here, his death listed as handled. Alexander's face darkened, his fingers tracing entries linking to his own charity donations, twisted into bribes. Victor used my money. Emma's fury ignited, her grip crushing a page. Crowe's footsteps echoed outside, a trap closing. They bolted, ledger in hand, hearts pounding. Emma clutched it like a lifeline, her resolve unbreakable. Victor's web spread wide. Cops, gangs, silenced voices, but they had the thread to pull it apart. Alexander's hand brushed hers in the getaway, a spark of solidarity. Crowe's shouts faded behind, but the chase was on, the truth a weapon sharpening in their grasp. You bastard, Victor! You killed my father! Emma Thompson's scream ripped through the abandoned warehouse air, her voice a thunderclap as she hurled the ledger at Victor Hale's feet. Her hands shook with raw fury, fingers clawing the air, eyes blazing like coals as the truth crashed over her. Alexander Grant stood beside her, his body coiled, fists balled, the raven pendant glinting under the bare bulb, like an accusation. They'd lured Victor here with a fake tip, the ledger's pages splayed open, entries damning, payoffs, hits, her father's name crossed out with silenced raven order. Victor's face contorted, his gun drawn in a flash, pointed at Emma's chest. You should have stayed quiet, girl. Emma's breath raged, her chest heaving, but she didn't back down. The Ravens, your gang mark. You had him mugged, beaten, left for dead because he knew about your bribes. Victor's laugh was guttural, his finger twitching on the trigger. Knew too much. Like you now. Alexander lunged, knocking the gun aside, the shot echoing wildly, grazing his arm. Blood seeped, but he didn't flinch, tackling Victor to the ground. It's over, Alexander growled, knee pinning Victor's chest. Emma grabbed the gun, her grip iron, pointing it steadily. The ledger shows everything, your doc deals, gang protection, my father exposing you. Victor spat, his eyes wild. He was a snitch. Thought he could rat me out to internal affairs. Emma's knees buckled for a split second, her nails digging into the gun's handle, the weight of years crashing down, her father's late nights, his warnings, his body found broken in an alley. You used Crowe to do it, she hissed, piecing the final shards. The same Crowe who staged the diner robbery to frame me, silenced me like him. Victor's sneer faded, sweat pouring. Crowe's my hammer. But you're nothing. Alexander twisted Victor's arm, eliciting a yelp. She's everything you fear. Proof. The revelations poured out as Victor thrashed. Your charities, Grant, I skimmed them, turned donations into hush money. Alexander's face paled, his wound throbbing, but his hold tightened. You corrupted my name. Emma's mind spun, the web complete. Victor's rise built on blood, her father the first stone, the robbery a desperate cover when she wouldn't break. Lily's future. You almost stole it, like you stole his life. Her voice cracked, but her aim held. Victor's defiance was shattered. It was business. Cops need edges. Emma kicked the ledger closer, pages flipping to entries of rigged arrests, vanished witnesses. Business? Murder. Alexander yanked Victor up, slamming him against the wall. Confess. Victor's breath ragged, he snarled. Fine. I ordered the hit. Crowe executed. Satisfied? Emma's tears burned unshed, her finger hovering on the trigger, but she lowered it, her strength a quiet storm. Not yet. You'll rot for this. The truth hung electric, binding them. Victor's empire of lies crumbling under their assault. Sirens wailed distant, tipped off by Alexander's contact. Emma pocketed the ledger, her resolve forged anew, the ghost of her father avenged in this moment. Victor slumped, defeated, his empire exposed. Alexander bandaged his arm roughly, his eyes on Emma, a partner, not a pawn. The warehouse door burst open, but they stood ready, the revelation a weapon unleashing justice's flood. You're dead meat, Thompson. Your nosy ass ends here. Sergeant Harlan Crowe's roar exploded in the warehouse shadows, his boot kicking the door wide, gun leveled at Emma Thompson's head. Her heart slammed against her ribs, fingers clutching the ledger like a shield, eyes locked on his twisted snarl. Victor Hale lay bound on the floor, defeated, but Crowe charged in, his bulk a freight train of rage. Alexander Grant dove for cover, his wounded arm throbbing, shouting, "Emma, run!" But she stood firm, her jaw clenched, teeth grinding, as Crowe's shot whizzed past her ear, splintering crates. "You think you can take down Victor? I'll bury you like your old man." Emma ducked behind a pillar, her breath ragged, pulse thundering. "You did it! You killed him for Victor!" Crowe's laugh boomed, bullets peppering the air. "Orders are orders. Now you join him." She rolled, scraping her knees, grabbing a loose pipe, her grip iron. Alexander fired back with Victor's confiscated gun, the blast echoing, grazing Crowe's shoulder. Blood sprayed, but Crowe didn't falter, his eyes wild with loyalty and hate. "Rich boy thinks he's a hero? I'll gut you both!" He charged, tackling Alexander, fists pounding, bones cracking under the assault. Emma swung the pipe, connecting with Crowe's back, the impact jarring her arms. "Get off him!" Crowe spun, his meaty hand clamping her throat, lifting her off the ground. "Nosy bitch! Victor said you'd be trouble." Emma's vision blurred, her nails raking his face, drawing blood, her legs kicking wildly. The ledger slipped, pages fluttering, but she didn't yield, her fury ablaze. "You're finished," she gasped, knee slamming into his groin. He howled, grip loosening, dropping her. She gasped for air, coughing, but Crowe recovered, backhanding her across the face, the sting splitting her lip. Blood tasted metallic, her head spinning, but she scrambled for the gun. Alexander groaned, rising, tackling Crowe again, the two men grappling in a brutal tangle. "Emma, the ledger, get it out!" Crowe's elbow connected with Alexander's jaw, a crack resounding, but Emma snatched the book, tucking it under her arm. "It's over, Crowe! You're exposed!" He broke free, lunging at her, his knife flashing from his boot. The blade sliced her sleeve, drawing a line of fire across her arm. She cried out, pain searing, but dodged, pipe swinging again, cracking his knee. Crowe buckled, roaring, "I'll kill you slow!" Sirens blared closer, lights flashing through cracks. But he pressed on, his hatred a monster unleashed. Emma's blood dripped, her vision tunneling, Lily's face flashing, her daughter's life hanging on this fight. Alexander staggered up, grabbing Crowe's arm, twisting the knife free. "Enough!" The struggle intensified, Crowe headbutting Alexander, blood streaming from his nose. Emma kicked Crowe's side, her boot connecting hard, ribs crunching. He gasped, faltering, but his eyes burned with final defiance. "Victor's network. Bigger than you." He swung wildly, knife grazing Emma's side, fresh agony ripping through her. She fell back, ledger clutched, breath labored, but her will unbreakable. Alexander pinned him finally, knee on his back. "Stay down." Crowe spat blood, laughing maniacally. Too late. The ravens fly. Police lights flooded the space, doors bursting, but Emma rose, ledger raised, ready to end the nightmare. "You won't walk out alive, you meddling fools," Harlan Crowe bellowed, his knife slashing wild as he broke free from Alexander Grant's hold, lunging straight at Emma Thompson. Her side burned from the graze, blood soaking her shirt, but she scrambled backward, eyes scanning the warehouse frenzy for anything to turn the tide. Alexander tackled Crowe again, his face bloodied, grunting as he pinned the sergeant's arm. "Emma, search him!" She dove in, her hands frantic, patting Crowe's pockets while he thrashed like a caged beast. "Get off me!" Crowe snarled, headbutting Alexander, the crack echoing. But Emma's fingers closed on a small drive in his jacket, a USB key, cold and damning. She yanked it free, her breath heaving, heart pounding as Crowe's free hand clawed at her wrist. "That's mine, you bitch!" Emma's nails raked back, drawing more blood, her fury a wildfire. "This proves everything. Your hits, Victor's orders." Alexander twisted Crowe's arm harder, bones grinding, eliciting a howl. The drive was the final piece. Digital proof backing the ledger, emails, recordings of payoffs and murders, her father's voice perhaps captured in a desperate call. Sirens screamed closer, lights piercing the gloom. But Crowe fought on, his eyes mad. "Victor'll have your heads." Emma pocketed the drive, her grip vice-like, standing tall despite the pain ripping her side. "Not when this hits the light. Your Raven network crumbles." Alexander slammed Crowe's head to the floor, dazing him, blood pooling. "Where's the rest? Talk!" Crowe spat, laughing through pain. "Safe house, dockside, but you'll never—" Emma kicked his ribs again, the thud satisfying, her boot leaving a mark. "We will." The fight drained from Crowe as cops burst in, guns drawn, freezing the scene. Emma raised her hands slowly. Ledger and drive clutched, her voice cutting through. "Arrest him! He's the killer!" Officers swarmed, cuffing Crowe, his curses muffled. Alexander slumped against a crate, his arm limp, but his eyes met Emma's, a nod of triumph amid the chaos. She handed the drive to a lead detective, her fingers steady. "This has it all. Victor's confessions, Crowe's executions." The cop's eyes widened, scanning the files on a quick plug-in. Audio of Victor ordering hits, including her father's, timestamps matching the ledger. Emma's chest tightened, tears stinging unshed, her father's justice finally in hand. "Play it," she demanded, voice steel. The recording crackled. Victor's voice cold. "Take out Thompson. He knows too much." Crowe thrashed in cuffs, snarling, "You're done!" But the evidence sealed him, officers dragging him out, his threats empty. Emma's wounds throbbed, but her spirit soared. The drive held videos too, grainy footage of Crowe's deeds, bribes exchanged in shadows. Alexander rose, gripping her shoulder. "We got it." She nodded, pain fading under victory's rush, Lily's future secure, her father's ghost at peace. The warehouse was filled with flashing lights, but Emma stood unbroken, the final proof a key unlocking chains of corruption. "You think this ends with cuffs? I'll drag you down with me." Harlan Crowe's bellow shook the warehouse as officers hauled him up, his eyes locked on Emma Thompson, with venom pure. Her bloodied hand thrust the USB drive forward, fingers steady despite the fire in her side, facing the swarm of cops. Victor Hale, still bound, twisted against his ropes, his face a mask of snarling defeat. Alexander Grant stood beside her, arms slung, voice cutting through the din. "Play it! Now!" The lead detective plugged the drive into his tablet, speakers crackling to life with Victor's recorded snarl. "Crowe, handle Thompson's dad. Make it look random." Victor lunged, ropes straining. "Lies! Fabricated!" But Emma shoved the ledger into the detective's hands, her voice a whip. "Read. Dates match. Payoffs from gangs. Hits on whistleblowers." The cop's eyes hardened, one cuffing Victor tighter. "You skimmed my charities," Alexander accused, stepping close, his fist clenching. Victor spat at his feet. "Your money built my empire. You're as dirty." Emma's laugh was sharp, her lips splitting fresh blood. "Not anymore." The tablet blared more. Crowe's voice. "Boss, the diner job. Frame the waitress. Shut her up like her old man." Officers gasped, turning on Crowe, his struggles intensifying. "Traitor!" he roared at Victor. Emma pressed, her chest heaving, eyes boring into Victor. "You ordered my father's murder. Admit it." Victor's defiance cracked, sweat pouring. He was a threat, knew too much about the Ravens. The detective's radio crackled, backup arriving, but Emma didn't relent, grabbing Victor's collar. "The Ravens, your corrupt crew. Crowe your killer." Crowe broke an arm free, swinging at an officer, the punch landing with a thud. Chaos erupted, guns drawn, shouts echoing. Alexander shoved Victor down, knee on his back. "Confess, the whole network." Victor gasped. "Fine. Crowe executed. Gangs paid for protection. Your dad, collateral." Emma's knees buckled, her grip on the drive tightening, tears mixing with blood. "Collateral? He was my father." She slammed the ledger open, pages flying to a list of names. Victim silenced, bribes tallied. The detective nodded, voice grim. This ties to open cases. Dockside rackets, rigged arrests. Crowe charged again, tackling a cop, knife flashing from his boot. Emma dove, pipe in hand from earlier, cracking his wrist, the blade clattering away. Stop! Officers piled on, subduing him, cuffs clicking. Victor watched, broken, muttering. It was power. Just power. Alexander ripped Victor's sleeve, exposing the raven tattoo. Your mark, on every thug in your pocket. The exposure hit like a storm. Cops photographing, radios buzzing with arrest warrants. Emma stood tall, wounds throbbing, but her voice rang clear. My father's letter warned of this. Ravens guarding the corrupt. You're done. Victor's head dropped, whispers of defeat. Crowe turned on me, said he'd take over. The twist sliced deep. Crowe's eyes widened in betrayal. Liar! You promised me the top. Officers separated them. The alliance was shattered. Emma's breath steadied, handing over the final evidence. Her father's justice sealed. The warehouse doors flew open to more lights, but Emma's fight ended here, truth blazing victorious. You're finished, Hale. Your badge means nothing now. The judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot, slamming down as Victor Hale's face drained white, his chains rattling in the courtroom silence. Emma Thompson stood tall in the witness box, her scars hidden under her blouse, eyes piercing Victor like daggers. Alexander Grant gripped the railing beside her, his bandaged arm a reminder of the warehouse brawl, his voice low. Admit it, all of it. Victor snarled back, You framed me. But Emma cut him off, her tone ice cold. Framed? Your own words on tape. Ordering my father's hit. The jury shifted, murmurs rising, but the prosecutor thrust the ledger forward. Exhibit A, payoffs, murders, raven marks. Victor lunged against his restraints, face twisting. Crowe did the dirty work. Harlan Crowe in the dock beside him roared, Liar! You gave the orders! Officers yanked them apart, chains clinking, as the judge barked, Order! Emma's chest heaved, her fist clenched, nails biting palms, the truth unleashing like a flood. You stole lives for power, she accused, voice steady. Victor's eyes darted, sweat beading. It was survival. Alexander leaned in, his breath hot. Survival? You skimmed my funds, built your empire on blood. The evidence piled, USB recordings played, Victor's voice booming. Silence Thompson, permanently. Gasps echoed, jurors' faces hardening. Crowe spat at Victor. You promised me the cut, Victor whipped around. Shut up, you botched the diner. The courtroom erupted, bailiffs wrestling them down, but Emma pressed, her words a hammer. Botched? You framed me to cover your tracks, like my father. The judge's gavel pounded again. Enough! Guilty on all counts! Victor slumped, his empire shattering, while Crowe thrashed, cursing. I'll appeal! But officers dragged them out, doors slamming, their threats hollow. Emma's knees weakened, relief crashing, her father's face flashing, avenged at last. Alexander's hand squeezed her shoulder. It's done. Prosecutors swarmed, tying loose ends, gang arrests from ledger names, witnesses emerging from shadows. Emma testified further, her voice unwavering. Victor's network, cops taking bribes, staging crimes. Files opened, more convictions rolling. Dockside thugs cuffed, raven tattoos exposed. Alexander revealed his skim charities, funds recovered, his testimony sealing nails in coffins. I funded justice, not corruption. Victor's final glare from the door burned, but Emma met it, unflinching. Rot there. The sentence rang, life without parole, Crowe matching. Applause broke, but Emma's tears fell silent, justice a balm on old wounds. Crowe's last lunge at the bailiff failed, his roar muffled as doors closed. Emma exhaled, Lily waiting outside, her hug an anchor. Alexander nodded to the detectives. Clean the force, root out the rest. Warrants flew, more arrests, raven-marked officers hauled in, the conspiracy gutted. Emma's scars ached, but her spirit lifted, knots unraveling, her job restored, Record expunged, father's name cleared. The courtroom emptied, echoes fading, but Emma walked out head high, the weight lifted, ready for rebuilding. You think throwing money erases your blind spot, Grant? Emma Thompson's voice sliced through the boardroom air, her eyes locked on Alexander Grant as he stood at the podium, his suit crisp but his face etched with determination. Her arms crossed tight, fingers digging into her sleeves. The scars from the warehouse fight a hidden fire under her skin. Alexander's jaw set, his hand gripping the microphone. Not erase, change. He turned to the assembled executives, reporters flashing cameras. Today, I launched the Thompson Foundation, millions for Black single mothers in nursing programs, fighting the biases that nearly destroyed Emma. Emma's chest tightened, her breath quickening, but she didn't interrupt, her silence a challenge. Alexander continued, voice booming. I was complicit. Let Victor's poison blind me. No more. He signed the charter with a flourish, checks distributed, scholarships for hundreds, clinics in underserved neighborhoods. Emma leads it. Her grit rebuilds what I ignored. Reporters surged, questions flying. Mr. Grant, is this guilt? Alexander cut them off. It's accountability. Emma stepped forward, her voice steady. Guilt doesn't fund futures. Action does. She unveiled plans. Free inhalers for asthmatic kids like Lily, anti-bias training for cops, and her father's name on every grant. Executives murmured, one objecting. This shifts our focus. Alexander slammed the table. Our focus was wrong. Emma showed me. Strength in the overlooked. He wired funds live, screens lighting with transfers, millions flowing to community centers, her old diner renovated as a hub. Emma's eyes stung, unshed tears burning, Lily in the audience clapping. You're giving back, she said low. Alexander nodded. And more. Policy changes. My company's audit for discrimination promotes from the ground up. Boards approved on the pot, signatures flying, reforms cascading. Reporters pressed Emma. How does this heal? She gripped the podium, knuckles white. Heals, it empowers. No more framing innocence like me. Alexander backed her, announcing partnerships. Hospitals training diverse nurses, her program first. Funds poured in, donors matching, the foundation swelling. Emma's resolve hardened, her pain channeling into drive. For my father, for every silenced voice. Alexander's hand on her shoulder, brief but firm. We build together. Skeptics jeered online, but Emma countered in interviews, her words sharp. Doubt us? Watch us rise. The launch ended with a ribbon cut, crowds cheering, and Lily hugging Emma's legs. Alexander pulled her aside. This is just the start. Your vision leads. She nodded, her grip on his arm tight. Make it count, or I walk. Reforms rolled out. Company diversity hires spiking, police oversight boards formed. Emma's classes resumed, her scrubs a symbol, inspiring applicants flooding in. Alexander's empire transformed, audits exposing hidden biases, firings and trainings purging the rot. Emma's scars faded, her strength amplified, the action a beacon lighting paths for thousands. You call this family, Grant? After you let them cuff me? Emma Thompson's voice cracked sharply in the sunlit park, her eyes flashing at Alexander Grant as Lily swung between them, her small hands linking theirs. Alexander's grip tightened on Lily's fingers, his face softening, but his tone firm. Not let, failed, but we fought back, together. Emma's jaw clenched, teeth grinding, her nursing scrubs fresh from graduation, the diploma in her bag, a hard-won trophy. Lily giggled, pulling them forward. Mom, he's our friend now. Emma's chest eased, her scars a faint reminder under her sleeve. But she pressed. Friend? You funded the fight. Doesn't erase the bias. Alexander stopped, turning to her, voice low. It doesn't. But this does. The foundation, your lead, changing lives. Crowds gathered for the park's dedication. Thompson Memorial, plaques honoring her father, raven symbols replaced with hope emblems. Emma unveiled the sign, her hand steady. For silenced voices like his. Applause thundered, beneficiaries stepping up, Mothers in scrubs, kids with inhalers, faces beaming. One hugged Emma. "You saved my dream." Emma's eyes stung, her hug fierce. "We save each other." Alexander watched, his empire's reforms echoing. Diverse boards, clean charities. "I learn from you. See strength, not skin." Lily tugged Emma's hand. "Teach me to be strong like you, Mom." Emma knelt, eyes level. "You already are. Fight unfairness. Stand tall." Alexander joined, his voice gentle. "And ask for help. Build bridges." Families mingled, stories shared, evictions averted, degrees earned, biases shattered. Emma's program thrived, scholarships flowing, her classes packed with fighters like her. Alexander's companies led change, audits purging old guards, promotions lifting the overlooked. "No more ravens," he said, hand on her shoulder. Emma nodded, her grip warm. "Only light." Reporters swarmed. "Ms. Thompson, the lesson?" She faced them, voice clear. "Prejudice blinds. Courage opens eyes. One calm stand sparks justice." Alexander added, "Wealth hoards. Sharing rebuilds." Cheers rose, Lily waving a foundation banner. Emma's tears fell free, joy mixing with pain, her father's legacy alive in every face. Alexander pulled her close, whispers soft. "Family now. For real." She squeezed back, her strength his anchor. The park bustled, kids playing, mothers planning, their bond a new root, growing strong. Emma walked forward, Lily skipping, Alexander beside. The fight won, futures bright, lessons etched in every step. In the end, this story reminds us that prejudice blinds us to true strength, but courage and accountability can shatter those barriers, revealing the hidden potential in everyone and forging paths to real justice and change. What do you think? Have you ever faced injustice and turned it into triumph? Share your thoughts or personal stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next inspiring tale. Stay strong,